tie up an interesting little wet fly today. This is the Irish grouse. This is in Ray Bergman's book on trout, and it's just a fun little fly to tie. There's not much to it. There's no tail or tag on this. There's a body of floss, a rib, a palmered hackle, and a peacock herl wing. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you a different technique on tying in the wing on this, one that I like to use when I'm tying a bunch of these just to go fishing with. And I'll mention a little bit more about the wing in the video. It's actually a fairly quick little fly to tie. I think you can get 5 or 6 minutes. You can get one of these tied. It's a great little fly if you want to work on some of your skills for tying wet flies as well. That's the Irish grouse. Now I'll get started. I'm going to start the Irish grouse by placing my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 in a size 8. I'll debarb the hook. Because this has an orange floss body, I'm going to use a base layer of white thread. This is just a Danville 6/0 70 denier in white. Starting just a little bit behind the eye of the hook, I'll run down and put a base layer of thread along the hook shank. Irish grouse has no tag or a tail either. So the first material I'm going to tie in is the hackle, or the body hackle. And I'm using this is a Whiting's wet fly hackle. It's just a hen saddle with nice long, real long full feathers here. After I find an appropriate feather, what I'm looking for is the base, or let's just say the middle of the feather right here, is going to end up right near the front and a few wraps almost like a collar. So I want these to be about 1.5 times the gap of the hook. They'll start out a little shorter back here and get a little bit longer. It just gives it a much fuller appearance. After selecting the feather, I'll peel away the fluff. Take all that off. It gives you a nice little handle. Holding it by the tip, maybe about 1/5 of the way down. I want to keep most of the feather for the fly. I'll stroke those barbs rearward and clip off the tip. And then with a couple of wraps right here, I'll just bind that in. I'm going to use some wax on my thread. This is just going to help grip the materials a little bit better. Next, I'm going to tie in my rib. The rib is just a gold tinsel. I'm using a Danville's Mylar tinsel. This is a silver and gold tinsel in a size 16 and 18. If I were to go up to, say, a size 6 or even a size 4 hook, I'd probably move up to the size 14. I'm going to tie that in with the silver side up. I'm going to bring it over on my side of the hook and just down towards the bottom side of the hook. Put one wrap in to secure that. The body on this is just an orange floss. I'm using a Danville's Rayon 4-strand floss. This is an orange. And I'm only using 2 strands of the 4-strand floss for this size. Again, if I were to go up to a size 6 or a size 4, I would probably use 3 strands. I'll pull that to the side so that it's the length of the body. And then I'll start wrapping my thread forward. I want to get nice edge-to-edge wraps here because I just want to have a nice smooth underbody. Don't pull on the thread too much because you don't want to twist the underbody, the floss, and the tinsel over to the side and get kind of a rib going under there. Stop with my thread about an eye length behind the eye of the hook, and then I will wrap in the orange floss and then my rib. Of the rib, and I'll secure that and trim away the excess. The hackle for this is tied in, well, I should say wrapped in palmered, which is to say that when you're wrapping this in, it's in an open spiral as it goes up the hook shank. What I want to do is I want to follow along the back edge of the Mylar tinsel. The most difficult part of this is that the rachis of this feather, because it's not round, it's going to want to twist up on you. And so therefore the barbs are going to be wanting to switch their orientation in terms of wrapping this in. Even when I fold this back some, so I prep the feather by folding some of this back to get it out of the way, it's not going to keep that from kind of twisting up. So you want to just take your time with this. You're going to bring this around, and like I said, it's in an open spiral, and I'm just going to follow the back edge of that Mylar. When you're coming around and it's twisting up a little on you, just take your time with it. Get up to where the thread is up here. Put in an extra 2 or 3 wraps to make a little bit of a collar on this. The original hackle for the Irish grouse was a furnace hen hackle. I don't happen to have any furnace hen, that's why I'm using this brown Whiting's wet fly. I think it gives it the same effect. Some of the feathers in there have a little bit of a darker center, but you want a nice soft hackle, and just put a little bit of a collar on the front here to just bulk that up just a little bit more. Secure that hackle in, and then we can trim away the excess. I'm going to stroke some of the hackles from the sides down, pointing downward just a little. I don't necessarily want to get the ones on top pointing downward, but I'm just going to pull those down just a little bit. A couple of wraps to secure that, and bring my thread to the eye of the hook. Now I'm going to change out my thread. To finish this, I'm going to use the same Danville 6/0 70 denier, but this is in black. The wing on the Irish grouse is some peacock herl. Now I'm going to use just some herl from a package of just strung peacock herl. You can, if you want really, really nice tips on these, you want to get an actual peacock feather and then select the ones that have really, really nice tips to them. I'm going to select about a dozen, maybe 15 herls. Problem with the herls in a package is because they get kind of knocked around and bumped around, especially in the process of stitching them together, the tips will get broken off, so you don't get the nice rounded tips. And then plus some of the barbules on the actual barb itself, you can see on some of these, they get knocked off. So you have these little gaps like this right here. So the herls in a package of strung herl aren't quite as good as what you can select off of a nice feather. This is what I have right at the moment. I do have some peacock feathers, but this is what I'm going to use because this is going to be a fishing fly. This is not going to be a framed fly. And I wanted to show you a technique for basically selecting your herls like this, getting the tips fairly even. They don't have to all be absolutely perfect. Actually, I think they look a little bit better if they're not all the same. But you just want to get these all fairly even like this. And then to give it a little bit more of kind of a rough look, but even it up, you can just pull the tips off with your thumb like this. It gives them just a little bit more natural looking end, but it kind of evens them up a little bit. Now you can also stack these, and I will refer you to a video by Fred Klein, Grizzly King Fly, who did a really, really nice video on the Irish grouse on a larger size hook. And he takes the herls right off of a actual peacock feather and stacks them, and he shows you a really interesting technique on how to do that. But part of the reason why I do this is, again, it's going to be a fishing fly. I think it'll still fish really, really well. Plus, it's a little bit more expedient because I'll show you here after we tie this in, and I want to tie this in with the tips just a little bit beyond the bend. Secure that in with a few tight wraps, and then trim away the excess. Now I don't get kind of the nice, almost sweeping herl tips coming back, almost curved along the back. But that's fine for me because when this is in the water, all of this is really going to just be kind of laying down a lot like this. Again, this is a fishing fly, and if you're going to tie a bunch up for fishing, the nice thing is my herl that I have here is almost ready for tying in another wing. The only thing that I do here is I'll wet my fingers a little bit and kind of roll all of that herl in my fingers. And what this does, it kind of mixes it up and it gets all the tips not cut even. So it makes it look just a little bit more natural. But out of this clump of herl that I have here, I can get 3 or 4 wings now for a number of different flies that I'm going to fish. If you're just tying them in and getting those nice tips, again, they look really nice. And if I were framing this or giving this away as a gift to somebody or something, I would be using those and getting those nice tips on there. But then the rest of the herl, you either have to save it to be used in another fly or discard it. So with the wing in, Take my thread down to the eye of the hook, working back. I just want to make a nice, neat head, covering all of those butt ends up. And then I'll put in about a 9 or 10 turn whip finish. I'm going to flatten the thread here. Just gives it a little bit smoother head. So when I put the head cement and then lacquer on there, it takes less lacquer to get a nice smooth head on this. A little bit of head cement on both sides. And the Irish grouse is complete. After that head cement dries here in just a little bit, I'll put in 1 to probably 2 coats of black lacquer on that just to give that a nice smooth head. Just makes it look a little bit more finished and it's a little more durable. This is an excellent little fishing fly, just the way this is tied. It'll swim real well in the water. Lots of movement with the hackles and the peacock curls. Like I said, it's a great little searcher pattern. It can resemble all kinds of different things between insects and bait fish swimming around in the water. So that's the Irish grouse. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for joining me at Devise today. I hope you learned at least a new pattern, if not a new technique, maybe a tip or trick here and there. If you have any questions about this fly or any of the techniques used in constructing this pattern, please leave them in the comments section down below. If you go to the trouble to ask a question, I'll go to the trouble to answer it. If you'd like to help Dressed Irons, please share this video with your friends and anybody you think that might enjoy this pattern. Until next time, remember, it's fly tying. If you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong.